Welcome to the I Learn, Therefore I Can podcast, an iRise performance consulting production where we explore the dynamic world of performance through a learning and development lens with a focus on achieving excellence. I'm your host, Lonney Gregory, and I'm inspired by those of you that wish to be better at what you've been asked to do. This is the first episode where it's more than just me or me and someone else. You notice I got two guys here on the platform with me. We're going to have a very incredible conversation. I shared with you in episode 1 my journey to entering this business. And I shared with you that I ended up at Fleet Training Center, Norfolk, Virginia, to teach the Navy's version of trainer school. And I told you or inferred about the great people that I worked with during that time. And after that episode, as I'm reflecting upon all the other stories I want to talk about, I'm like, you know what, friends? I can't not tell the story about these two guys that are sitting here with me. When we started in this business, we all had dark hair and hair. These two guys still have hair, but we all got a little bit of gray now. And these were the folks that helped me really figure out, these two guys, particularly these two guys, were the gentlemen that really helped me figure out that this is the life that I want to live. This is the business I want to be in. So here they are. We got Greg Cherney, my man over here, and we got Tom Brugger. That's my man over there. And again, just imagine us, how long ago? 30 some odd years ago.
Yeah, over 30 years.
Yeah. Just imagine us 30 years ago. We were super fit Navy people. And by the way, speaking of Navy, if I was going to share like a characteristic or a trait for these two guys and consider the Navy, they would be the Navy SEAL of instructors. Right? They didn't teach Navy SEALs, right? They were Navy SEAL instructors. But if I was going to give them, they are the Navy SEAL, the warrior of instructors, ladies and gentlemen, Greg Cherney and Tom Brugger. And by the way, thanks fellas for joining me on this presentation for us to go back and examine our lives. Thanks so much for being here.
No, you're very welcome. I was honored.
As am I. Thanks.
Yeah, so honored. That's incredible. So, friends, let me just tell you, I got to instructor training school with orders that said when I was done at instructor training school, I would go teach electronics, which was right around the corner, right? From where we taught train to trainer. It's right around the corner. But then I got in front of these two gentlemen who had, I don't think you'd been there much longer than the class that I showed up, right?
Now, when did you get there, Greg? 89?
Got there in the start of 90 is when I got there.
Yes, I didn't get there till 91, right? After Saddam invaded Kuwait. Because I took that slow boat and hung out with them for a little while as a deception planner. So yeah, when I arrived at instructor training school to learn how to teach, you guys were my instructors. You and some other phenomenal guys. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do what they do. And you guys put me through the paces and qualifications so I could earn the privilege to join you in teaching others how to teach. And then more so, teaching others how to create curriculum, to write curriculum in accordance with the Navy standards. It was powerful. So in order for me to tell a story about relationships and the passion for this business, I had to include these two guys. So friends, these are the guys that put your boy through his paces way back when. So Greg, you remember those times?
Yeah, I reminisce about it a lot. I do. I've told people all the time, that, the Navy has that thing where you talk 3 years and you have to roll. You got to go from shore to ship, back and forth. And I tell people all the time, like, if they would offer me and said, Greg, you can stay here and teach, I would recline my rear in that seat and I would stay there and teach until I couldn't teach no more.
Right. Yeah. How'd you think about it, Tom?
Well,
What do you remember?
well, I'll tell you this. I wasn't even supposed to be there really because I told my senior chief on the ship that I would adjust my rotation date to separation date if they sent me to school. Well, then I had to call a
Hmm.
detailer and say, "Hey, I want to do that." But instead, I negotiated orders off the ship and got to instructor training school. And then I was supposed to teach some course of electronics as well. But then my instructor called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to come over and teach for us?" I said, "Yeah." I was practically all the way over there before we even hung up the phone.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something special about that assignment and what we learned, like the laws of learning. Just the science behind learning, right? We literally did study uh, the educational texts that college students all over the place, graduate students all over the place studied so that they would learn about learning, how to teach, how to train, how the mind works, how you can address behavior, change behavior through the manipulation of the environment. Right, we learned about all the great thinkers in this space from its inception, and we learned that as foundation knowledge so that we can then go teach the actual curriculum for train the trainer. And like I said, when I showed up, you two guys were on the platform and I was in the seat. So friends, I do have to tell you that there's, while we had, or they had the same job as train to trainer instructors, they were very different people. And I remember watching the two of them, and I'm going, I want to be like Greg. Greg was a master at one of the courses that we taught, curriculum development. Greg, say a little bit about that.
Well, it was it's funny because I mean, you talked about your beginnings and stuff like that, and when I first got there, of course, it was okay. You're gonna train the trainer. That's what you're gonna do. But then, I mean, I only trained the trainer for like 3 months as my primary. And then they immediately snagged me and said, "Hey, you got to come over to this other course because one, it looks like it's going to be right up your alley. And two, nobody else wants to do it." So they put me over in the curriculum development. And basically what it was is, like, it's a 2-week course on how to write courses for the military, and it was basically how to write the objectives, how to outline it, how to write the material. I mean, you were basically writing the course,
Yeah.
and so, you look at it, I mean, the train the trainer, like, I mean, you're impacting 48 people who are going to be impacting that many more people when they go and start teaching.
Yes.
But then if you're doing curriculum development and teaching that, now you're actually influencing the material that's going to be covered by all those people that are in your course.
Mhm.
You're basically laying the foundation for courses that are going to be in the Navy, throughout the Navy. So it's super important. And I know you joke with me about, me being, hey, I was the gung-ho diligent one, that's what I did. I was the taskmaster,
You
but,
were.
I do it for that reason, and that reason in particular, because if you don't have a good foundation, ain't nothing going to happen after that.
Absolutely. But Tom, you taught curriculum development too,
I
right?
did. And I thought I love teaching instructor training school, train the trainer, but curriculum development took it to a whole new level. And I got to tell you, I still dream about that place. And
I don't blame
in
you.
my dreams, I want to see if that ninja is still on the wall. I doubt it 30 years later, but still.
I don't know, man.
And
Stranger things have happened. Maybe tradition.
and I remember Greg being one of the guest instructors who came in to help us with all the different things during instructor training school. And Greg also was one I said, "Well, I want to do that too." So, Greg, you managed to influence a lot of people. So
Absolutely.
if you're ever wondering if it's a wonderful life, it is.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
that
I think that's great, and I appreciate it because that was, like Lonnie mentioned, his game. Mine was different because when I rotated out, I specifically picked instructor training school as my next duty station. So I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to be good at it. I'm like, look, I want
yeah,
to do this. So I took it serious, but
you
it was
did.
the ultimate. But it was the ultimate compliment because like you said, Lonnie, we're supposed to. I was a radar technician, so I was supposed to go down the street like you were supposed to go down the street and teach radar. So I was supposed to do. But then at the end of the instructor training school, they handpick who they want to stay. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, and so they came to me. They're like, hey, Greg, we want you to stay. And to me, that was the ultimate compliment. It's like, well, I'm sure Dad ain't gonna say no to that. I'm gonna stay.
Mm-hmm.
You
Absolutely.
asked me to stay, that means you want me here, so I'm staying.
And I'm glad they did. So friends, imagine here I am, feeling similarly inspired by this environment and what I'm learning and what I'm understanding and the power thereof. And then watching these two guys, I remember saying to myself, I want to be like Greg to teach curriculum development. Then I go, but Brugger's so nice. Everybody likes Tom. Tom, you just had this, what is it, affability about you. Just folks just loved you. They gravitated towards you. I'm like, I need a little bit of that too. Why do you think that was, man? What, like, particularly in curriculum development, where I wanted to be more like Greg because he was ta 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 ta. You still had that it's going to be okay thing.
Yeah, because it was always going to be okay. No matter what happened there, everything was going to be okay. And I took it as that was kind of my shining star during my time in the Navy. I got to tell you, I wasn't the greatest technician ever. I was probably one of the worst, honestly. So when I didn't have to teach electronic school, and I could do something that I felt like I was really good at, that was my time to shine. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember conversations that we had about you, Lonney, before you joined us. Do you think that he would be great? Yes, get him.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I was inspired, particularly by that one instructor, Meeks. Remember Petty Officer Meeks?
Oh yeah.
Oh
That
yeah,
dude, brilliant. And Greg, he was your mentor, right?
he was my mentor. Yeah. So
Oh my
like
gosh.
like we were discussing ahead of time. I mean, he was the one that kind of put the serious hammer down on me because he's like, no, it's this, it's this, it's this. So I was marching to the beat of his drum. That's what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah. I recall as vivid as this morning, right? Sitting in front of Meeks in the trainer course, not the curriculum development course, in the trainer course. And we were talking about, one of the communication topics. And Meeks used to walk around with the coffee cup. Remember that?
Yeah.
And all along,
All the time, right? So one time he had two coffee cups. He goes, let me tell you how important this is. And he lifts the cup and he goes, this is this. And he puts it down and he grabs the other cup and he goes, this is not that. And that's what you have to learn. And I remember going, oh, like the force just exploded in that moment. I'm like, that's right. And I'll never forget it. And I picked it up, and it's a part of the discipline that I attempt to use. But I know, Greg, it was a part of the discipline that you used, particularly in curriculum development, because you were a no nonsense guy, and I wanted to capture that discipline and that dedication, right? 'Cause again, as you say, Greg, it wasn't about ego. It was about the fact that we're going to train people how to write curriculum to train people to go operate billion-dollar vessels and protect this nation against harm. And it needed to be done correctly. So thank you for your service. You've been listening to I Learn, Therefore I Can, an I Rise Performance Consulting podcast. We'll be right back.
Something though about how this all impacted me in my entire life. So right now I host a trivia game every Sunday, and I realized just recently that I accidentally used curriculum development to make it, because the game has an overarching theme, the course learning objective, and then each round has its own theme, the topic learning objectives. So it's just funny that I accidentally did that. I didn't even realize it until just the other day.
It's ingrained in you.
It sure is.
It's a part of how you think. Yeah. So I got to tell you, one of the things that always puzzled me about you two guys is, like, why didn't you stay in the business? And again, everyone's situation is different. But I think in terms of, man, there's so many people that are missing out on your ability to transfer knowledge, to stimulate thinking, to get people to derive answers. I'm like, there's folks in your parts of the country that are missing out. I'm wondering, like you just suggested, Tom, to what extent are you still using some of the principles that we were taught and that we own?
Oh, constantly. Questioning techniques, except I don't call on a trainee by name. I still do I ask a question and then I give time for people to consider. But then I don't call on a trainee by name, but they do turn in their answer, and I do comment on the answer.
Five-step questioning technique. I never forget it.
Right there.
Yeah. How about you, Greg? What are you just plugged into? Because,
well, it's funny because I was just at a seminar last year, and they tried to throw they tried to throw at the end. They tried to throw an impossible scenario at you, where you're not going to be able to solve it, where you're in front of a customer, and you're the person doing the sales presentation. And, and I'm sitting there, one of my teammates is up there presenting, and I'm looking at the people, the customers that are sitting in the room. I'm looking around, and I'm reading them without, saying anything. And then, and that took me back to the old nonverbal communication, right? It's like, hey, look at the nonverbals. And I just immediately stopped my presenter, the guy that was up there, my teammate, and I said, hey, look, I said, I don't know about you if you see what I'm seeing, but I think these guys are ready to buy, and we don't have to say anything to them. And the whole concept of that presentation, they told us after the fact, because I got it exactly right, was that the longer you went presenting, the more detached they became until they got infuriated and, stormed out.
Right.
But, one of the instructors there at that session, they're like, how did you know? Did your mentor, at this seminar, did he tell you what the scenario was? And I said, no. I said, I just read the room. I said, that's all you need to do is just read the room. See, and they had a technique. You talked about the 5-step questioning technique. The way they modeled it there is they call it LAGS. Listen, acknowledge, gap, and solve. That's what they call it. But it's basically the same thing. It's the same thing as we learned. It's just a different name, but it's the same concept. And they talk. I was sitting there and they're going, use open-ended questions. I'm like, really? You mean like the Hows and Whys? No doubt. Yeah. I learned that 30 years ago.
Absolutely. We did, man. We learned a lot of things, and we used to engage in conversations about how to apply them, how to respond to what we see. The other interesting facet of the work that we did was to give people feedback on their presentations, on their teaching, in accordance with what they were asked to do and how they were asked to do it. And the reason why I mention that is because I have a love-hate relationship with this word feedback. So when we were giving feedback to people, it was based upon a set of criteria, right? It was based upon the execution or the incorporation of a principle in association with a point that needed to be made, with the emphasis to support the learning objective, which had conditions and standards, right? The whole 9 yards. So when we gave people feedback, it was in accordance with that criteria. Now, I hear this word feedback, and what happens is it's just a series of opinions, not necessarily based upon criteria. And I've got this mindset now because of that experience. Yeah, so that's a lesson that I took away from that. The other lesson was for us as the instructors to always be engaged in conversation about what we're going to do, right? Or what we're doing and how the class is responding, to any topic or any this or any that. We were always checking in with one another. And I thought that was pretty powerful too.
Yeah, I think part of it too, like you said, we always had discussions because you come in, the thing about being in front of a group like that, any group, any place you're going to be, one of the big phobias that everybody always has is, oh, I can't be in front of this big group, and the thing that we had to relay to them is like, look, you're the subject matter expert, right? You're the one with the knowledge. So you take your pride in that, that you're the subject matter expert, but still, you go into a situation like that and you never know what type of question or what event is going to happen that's going to make you change your path. When you're in there doing a presentation, you're like, well, something could, turn it sideways on its head, and you're like, okay, well, what do I do to correct? And those are the type of discussions that we would have too, in the office when we weren't on the podium. It's like, okay, so this happened and this happened and this happened, because the more tools you got in your belt, the easier it's going to be for you.
Absolutely. No doubt. And we had a bunch of tools. There's one story I got to tell. When I was qualifying, and by the way, qualifying to teach instructor training school was a serious deal, right? It wasn't a checkbox. It was an examination of the person type of thing. So there were multiple rounds of these things. So during one teach back, as you had the recording going, when it was done, you two guys were laughing. Y'all were cracking up in the back of the room. I'm like, what's so funny? And then he goes, well, you have to watch the video. I'm like, watch the video for what? He said, you were rubbing your belly the whole time. You remember that?
No, I can believe it.
And y'all named me Petty Officer Buddha. And I'm like, get out of here. I wasn't doing that. And then I looked at the film, and there I am, with the coffee cup in one hand, like meats, and my hand on my
Yeah.
So, that was amazing. Very funny. And again, it wasn't like, haha, funny jokes on you. It's haha, are you aware? Right. Are you aware, so that you can be good, minimize distractions, this, that, and the other thing. And again, it was funny. You poked some fun, but you always went back to the objectives. And I think that's what was instrumental in the development of the discipline and in the love for this discipline. The fact that you could, have fun, poke fingers, and then go, but why? And then point to that large objective. I learned that part working with you guys. It was cool. I had fun. I know Tom had fun.
I had a blast, except for on a couple occasions. But otherwise, it was 3 years of pure excitement, as somebody used to say all the time.
Right. And we had some great leaders. We had some other great shipmates.
We did.
There was Petty Officer Edwards.
Yes.
That other guy with the accent, family man. When we always talked about his family.
Oh, Shoemate.
Shoemate, yes. Petty Officer Shoemate.
The accent,
Um,
because he's Southern. So you see he has an accent.
well, he had a very significant
Oh
accent.
yeah.
But I think again it was endearing. And but before there was a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion, right? That wasn't even a thing for us in 91, 92, 93. But we were incredibly diverse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had people from all over the place. Yep, and males, females, all different backgrounds.
Mhm.
Different specialties within the Navy.
Mhm.
We had
Absolutely.
everybody.
We did, and we learned a lot because of that. And we had good leaders, man. Our chiefs and senior chiefs,
Yep.
they were cool. We had that civilian guy, Dr. Hoofnagel.
Yep, Dr. Hoofnagel.
Wow, what a blessing to have him. So, friends, Dr. Hoofnagel was like the civilian principal over all things pedagogy at Fleet Training Center. And he was engaged with us, right? It was important to him that we did well, and he supported us in all kinds of ways. And we would spend evenings, right? The day would be done, and we'd be in one of the classrooms just talking to Dr. Hoof, right, about this, that, or the other thing. Incredible experience. So I do have to ask, before we go, we're just about done. The one thing that I ask everybody, and it's based upon the show, what is it that each one of you has learned? Therefore, you can or you did go out and do X, Y, or Z. I learned X, therefore I can do Y. What is that for each of you?
I think that I learned, now I'm in a different industry, obviously, but I think that I learned that, back in the day, obviously it was the student, and now today for me it's the customer. But I learned that they were always number one. That's what I learned. That the student came first. Anything that happened to me, any accolades or anything like that, was because of what I did for my students. And so now, when in the industry that I'm in now, it's still customer focused. My greatest reward is when my customers come back to me and say, "Greg, we want you here."
Yeah.
That's the best reward that you can have, where you don't have to, where you're not selling yourself, your actions sell you. And that's probably my biggest learn.
Indeed. How about you, Tom?
I think that I learned that my confidence can carry me a long ways until my knowledge catches up with me.
Good introspection.
Yeah, because
therefore,
I didn't know any of this stuff going in, and then as we went along, there I was teaching instructor training school and teaching curriculum development, carrying on to becoming a technical writer for a long time. So, yeah.
I ask myself this question all the time. Obviously, I named the show "I Learn, Therefore I Can" because this business is my whole life. So I would say, what have I learned lately, or what am I learning? Therefore, I can do something. So I'm learning this podcast phenomenon, how to do it. Therefore, I can have these types of conversations about learning in development, the people that do it, the relationships that we have, the impact that we have on consumers, our ability to influence leaders with respect to how people learn, how they adapt and change behavior. Therefore, I can continue to have this conversation. If there's one thing that I like more than being on the podium is talking about being on the podium, because it has given me joy and pleasure over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Really grateful for it. And again, friends, I couldn't be having this conversation today if I hadn't had conversations with these two gentlemen 30 some odd years ago, United States Navy, Fleet Training Center, Norfolk, Virginia, where I worked with 2 Navy SEAL of instructors. These boys were bad, friends. I'm telling you.
Oh God.
So yeah, I wonder how they're doing now. I wonder if they're still good over there at Fleet Training Center. I wish we could just go and check out a class or two to see how they're doing. That would be interesting.
Right?
And we can show up with our hats, our white hats, and our MTS badges. That would be really cool.
Mine's right over there. Right about
Your
where
MTS badge is over there?
My name badge with my master training specialist. And yeah.
Yeah, friend, by the way, these are 2 United States Navy designated master training specialists and distinguished instructors. These some bad boys.
Not to tutor or anything, but I sat on the board. Remember? I was on the board for MTS.
Yes, I know. Hey, friends, man. Greg used to me, right? Like, no, like Meeks did to you, right? No. You did the same thing to me. It was like, no. And I was like, okay. I'll get it right. You were coach, mentor, teacher, instructor, like sensei, right? Like, you know.
But look at you now. See?
No.
So look at you now. So
Yeah.
I'm glad, like I said, you can't, a tiger can't change his stripes anyways. It's not like
how
I
about
can.
that?
I'm still the same way I was 30 years ago anyways, except with gray.
With Greg. They were the best. So thanks for being a part of my early life. Thanks for coming back and joining me in this conversation about that part of it and what we were able to do since then. Really appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I was honored to do it because it was a great time. It was a great time, great people, and a great thing to do. It was.
Indeed. Sure was. So, anchors away. That concludes this episode of I Learn, Therefore I Can, an iRise Consulting Performance podcast. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling better about being better at what I was asked to do. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. And thanks for learning. Because learning matters and performance counts. Be well.